Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Mark's English History channel, and this episode is part of my Walkabout series where I explore various historical locations both in England, Britain and Europe. So today I am at a battlefield in northern France, and it's the battlefield of Crecy, which was fought in 1348 and is largely seen as the first of the land battles of the 100 Years' War. So why was a battle fought here at Crecy in the first place? So the reason behind it goes back, it's a dynastic dispute between Edward III and the King of France. So one King of France dies without an heir, and who is then chosen to be the new king. And the new king is the nephew of the old king rather than of the previous king, rather than the grandson that was Edward. And the reason being was that he was born of the land. He was a Frenchman, Edward was English. So that's the reason why Edward goes to war with France. And so the campaign at Crecy is the major battle too in 1348. It's what we call a chevauchée. So the idea is that Edward isn't trying to invade the country and take it by storm. He's instead going to launch a large raid across northern France to undermine the King of France, and that would then, which is Philip VI, and that would allow Edward then to seize the throne, because if he's unable to control the land and protect the people, then he's failing his kingship. So that's the idea behind the armed chevauchée. So how it unfolds is that Edward's army lands on the Cotentin Peninsula up in Normandy, and that's that big part that sticks up. So it's close up near to where Barfleur, so if you've watched the White Ship episode, the port up there on that north-east coast of the Cotentin Peninsula, just above, for those of you who are more modern historians and interested in more modern, just above where Utah Beach is situated in 1944. So he lands up there and he marches his army down through Lower Normandy and attacks Caen. He captures Caen, one of the capitals of the Duchy of Normandy, and he sacks Caen. He causes untold devastation, possibly up to 12,000 civilian casualties in the massacre that ensued after the capture of Caen. From there he marches and crosses the Seine River, and then he comes across and crosses the Somme into the land known as Ponthieu. Now Ponthieu is the area that, if you remember, go back to the Tapestry, where when Harold arrives in France or Normandy at the beginning of it, he's originally captured. He's captured by the Count of Ponthieu. So that means that this is an area that was subservient to Normandy, became under English, and has since come under English control. So this area around here is actually English soil, or a dominion of England. But Edward has to pay homage to the French king to hold this land, and that's something he doesn't want to do, because he says that he is the rightful king, not Philip. So that leads us to the armies clashing here in 1348. So I'm just going to spin you around. So it's on this large hill. So Edward has picked this land. His army arrives here first, and he decides to give battle at this location. Now Edward's main position is a little bit further around the bushes here, so we'll get up to that in a moment. But this is the area in which the French army congregate and start to form up, ready to attack. Now it's quite good being here quite late in the afternoon, because the battle here was fought in the afternoon, and as you can kind of see, the sun is sort of behind the English position, so that's going to come into a major force. However, the French arrayed themselves in 3 divisions. So on the left side, as we look at it, if you're looking up the hill now, so closest to us as we look across, you had John of the King of Luxembourg's division. Level with him, but across on the far side, you had Charles of Alençon's division, and then behind him you had Philip VI's own division. but in front of them were the Genoese crossbowmen. So they'd have been in the front rank. Now, as we come up and round, we'll show you a bit more, and we'll talk about the English dispositions from where the French will be looking at them once we get round. Okay, so as you can see, it's quite a steep hill that the battle is going to be fought over. And we get up to this corner here, so the English position is going to be along the top of that ridgeline. In fact, if you can just see behind the large tree, there's a top of an observation tower. That's actually on the site of the windmill that Edward used as his headquarters for the battle. So his division was at the back on the ridgeline, as you'd expect. Similar to Philip, the King's own division is holding the reserve position. Okay? In front of him on the right and sort of slightly in front of there, so kind of from where those trees are arrayed, you'd have had the King's own son's division, Edward of Woodstock, who became known after this particular battle as the Black Prince because of the black armour that he's wearing. If you look at my jumper, that's what I've got on today. His division there, and then Northampton and Arundel come in. So Edward's coming across here, Northampton and Arundel over on that side. Okay, so the slight valley that you see in the distance there, that's going to mark the edge of the battlefield. So it's all happening down this slope, and if these bushes weren't here, it would be coming through here as well, because there's now a score over there in behind there. Okay, so that's the battlefield. In front of those divisions, the English would array their longbowmen, and then in front of them, they've dug pits with spikes in to trap the horses. So the English they got here first. They had time to position and defend themselves. The French, when they arrived, they rushed into battle. So one of the main problems that the French have here is with their crossbowmen. It takes them, for every one shot that a longbowman can put out, a crossbowman can put out, a longbowman can fire 3. In the rush to get into battle, the protective shields that these long crossbowmen would normally hide behind whilst reloading are back with the baggage train, because a crossbow has got a far greater range than a longbow because of the mechanical strength that it takes. You wind up the crossbow rather than pulling it. However, the rate of fire of a longbow is going to come into its own here because those shields are away. So first movement of the armies is these Genoese longbowmen, mercenary men, are pushed forward. Under the hailstorm of arrows coming off of the English lines, they break and they start to fall back. Now the Frenchmen behind see this and they push forward and actually chop down their own men in the rush to get up and fight the English, because they think the mercenaries are cowards. And that's where we're going to stop the story from here, and we're going to move around and see somewhere else. We was down by that corner, down by the hedgerow there, so we've come up and round, and the windmill is just off to our left at the moment. We'll be going up there in a moment. So you're looking down across, and that's the hedgerow where that was the big tree. So you're looking across the front of the English positions now. And as I say, the Genoese crossbowmen couldn't stand the punishment that the English and Welsh longbowmen were delivering to them. So they fell back, and the mounted knights of the French moving forward saw this as was being cowardly and wanted them out of the way, and rode over them and chopped them down out of their path. Now, when they charged, they got met with the same ferocity of arrows, and a good number of them are killed, a good number of them retire, but a good few push through. They're hit. A number of them fall within the pits that have been dug in front. But as these knights then broke through the pits, the archers scattered, and that left the men at arms to fight. Now, there was potentially up to 15 charges that day of various descriptions. Various ferocities, infantry, cavalry charges. It was more cavalry here than infantry than we'd see later at Agincourt. But every time they were broken. Now, at one point they did get in, and it was quite close call on the English right, at which point, instead of bringing his division in as a reserve, Edward remarks about his son, let him win his spurs today. He was given complete control of his forces at that point and managed to hold off the French attack. At the end of the day, at this battle, like at Agincourt 45 or so years later, the cream of the French nobility would be dead. And they'd be dead at the hands of, I wouldn't say peasants, but archers, men of a lower class than them. It wasn't seen as a knight-on-knight exchange that the laws of chivalry at the time should determine. So here we are, we're coming round a bit further now, and we're out of that hedgerow, and we're now up to close to the windmill, and you can see that this drop here, it drops down. You've got the English hill, it drops and it goes again. Now, we have to bear in mind that we've had 600 years of cultivation on this field since the battle, so that things may have changed. Even that hedgerow wouldn't be that old, I shouldn't imagine, so it's hard to say. But the model that they've got down in the museum here actually has the pits running along the front of this little drop, which is entirely possible, because you think you'd have the English division arrayed here, and then Edward's up on the top of the ridge. And if we take a wander down here, hopefully we can get a nice view. Well, I think this battlefield, along with the battlefields of Hastings, of Agincourt and of Bosworth, Hastings and Bosworth I've yet to do a walkabout on, but I'll do that one in the near future, shows just how compact a medieval battlefield was. I think sometimes nowadays we get hung up on the big battles of the modern period, things like the Battle of the Somme, the battles in Normandy in 44, these big battles where armies could fight each other without really seeing each other. But in medieval battles, you had to touch them to kill them, until really the Battle of Crecy was the first one of that kind, where the devastation was done by archers. Hastings, possibly, if you believe that Harold was killed by the arrow, but this is the first. And so battlefields in this time period are compact, so it is interesting to see. And this drop here would have made a quite significant hurdle if it was here at the time. But so just now having a look off the back, the other side of this hedgerow, again looking down what would have been the English lines, and then along the back where the baggage train would have been, and then back to Edward's windmill. So last stop on this walking tour, because like I say, there's not a lot here to see, and actually the action wasn't, there was 15 charges, but it's all kind of blurred into one as to how things unfolded, with that initial assault of the crossbowmen, their I won't say execution, but their retreat and what followed, and then just mass attack after mass attack, really uncoordinated. This time of day they're coming up, the sun's coming in from behind us, And again, it was actually summer, so whilst this is autumn that I'm filming this, the sun would be, being summer, the sun will come right round behind us, so they're coming up, the sun's in their eyes, I can't really see what's happening. So it's just an example of French military blunder on a massive scale in the medieval period. Okay, so at the moment the windmill is currently closed. It looks like it's fallen into a state of disrepair and needs some work on it before they let you go back up there. So this is the position from the windmill. Obviously you're looking significantly 30-40 foot higher observation to see over it. But the one thing I would like to say before I finish up here, it's been a short episode, this one, mainly because it's a very compact battlefield, and the source material and how it sort of what actually happened at the battle is quite vague. But what I will say is, having walked this hill a number down to the museum and back up again, it is very, very steep. It's a lot steeper than Hastings and other hills that made out a lot about in our history. So it would have made a significant difference, especially for those men who were advancing up here in armour. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that little tour of the battlefield here at Crecy in 1348. If, like I always say, if you like what you see on my channel, give it a like, give it a subscribe, give it a share. The more people that I get viewing my stuff, the better. Both to get English history out there and for my own self. If you've not already, have a watch of some of my other videos. Certainly if you're into medieval, I've got War of the Roses, not War of the Roses, 100 Years War. I've got videos on Agincourt already out. Like I said before, I'll pop that one in the comments. That's one of my study episodes rather than a walkabout. I've done, so it gives you a bit more of a background of the 100 Years War, Battle of Agincourt. I've also got an Agincourt video coming out, Walkabout. That might be out before this one, I'm not sure. But that'll be out very soon. But if you have a look on the site as well, there's plenty of other stuff to have a look at. So I hope you like it. And I say, give it a subscribe, give it a shout, give it a share, and I hope to be posting some more soon. Thank you.